Welcome back to Mighty Habits, everybody. I'm Stephen,
And I'm Mary.
and we are so glad to have you join us for another deep dive. We'd love to really get into the nitty-gritty of some of these self-improvement concepts.
Absolutely. And today we're tackling a big one.
Oh, yeah.
Self-sabotage.
Self-sabotage. It's
Yeah.
something that I think we could all relate to on some level.
Yeah, for sure.
And we're going to be looking at it through the lens of Brianna Wiest's book, The Mountain Is.
That's right.
Now, this book, it uses a really interesting metaphor.
Mhm.
Uses the metaphor of climbing a mountain to represent personal growth and overcoming these internal obstacles.
I love that metaphor.
Yeah, and it's so powerful because it
Yeah.
really gets at that idea that, sometimes we're the ones that are holding ourselves back, right?
Exactly. And the book really digs into this whole concept of self-sabotage.
Mhm.
How we often create these obstacles to success through these self-sabotaging behaviors that we might not even be aware of.
It's like we're setting up these roadblocks for ourselves, and then we're wondering why we can't seem to make any progress.
Right. And what's interesting is that these self-sabotaging behaviors, they can manifest in so many different ways.
Oh, yeah.
It could be procrastination, it could be fear of failure, it could even be perfectionism.
Oh, yeah. Perfectionism is a big one.
Years.
It's disguised as this positive thing, but really it's keeping us from actually putting ourselves out there.
Totally. And what Weist really emphasizes in the book is that understanding these patterns is the first step to breaking free.
Right. So it's not enough to just recognize that we're self-sabotaging. We have to dig a little deeper and figure out where these behaviors are coming from.
Exactly. It's like asking yourself, okay, what's the root of this mountain? What's the underlying fear or belief that's driving this behavior?
And sometimes those answers can be a little uncomfortable, right?
Oh, absolutely. It can be scary to face those inner shadows.
Yeah, but it's so necessary if we want to actually make progress. It's like we can't just keep trying to climb the mountain with all this extra baggage. We've got to unpack it and figure out what we need to let go of.
Right. And I think it's so important to remember that this is a journey for everyone. Everyone has their own personal mountains to climb, their own challenges to overcome.
Yeah, and what might be a mountain for one person might be a molehill for another.
That's so true. And the book really helps us to see how we can transform that self-sabotage into self-mastery.
Yeah, and that's really the ultimate goal, right? To move from this place of getting in our own way to a place of empowerment and action.
Absolutely. And the book provides some really practical strategies for doing just that.
Yeah, we're going to dive into some of those strategies in just a bit, but first I want to touch on something that Wiest talks about that I found really fascinating.
Okay. What's that?
She makes this distinction between self-sabotage and just plain old lack of motivation.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, because sometimes we might think, oh, I'm just not motivated,
Mm.
but really it's something deeper going on. It's self-sabotage.
Right, because with self-sabotage, there's this energy, there's this drive, but it's being misdirected.
Yeah, it's like we're putting all this effort into holding ourselves back instead of moving forward.
Exactly. It's almost like we're afraid of what might happen if we actually succeed.
Like we're setting ourselves up for failure because it's what we're familiar with.
Yeah, and the book delves into the psychology behind that. It explores how our past experiences, especially those traumatic ones, can really shape our beliefs about ourselves and the world.
Right, so it's not just about willpower or positive thinking. It's about understanding those deeper patterns that are driving our behavior.
And once we understand those patterns, then we can start to change them.
And that's where the real transformation begins.
Exactly.
So how do we start to dismantle those self-sabotaging behaviors and build a foundation for self-mastery?
Well, that's what we're going to explore next.
Stay with us.
We'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsors.
To delve into some of those practical strategies for turning those mountains into molehills.
And reaching new heights of self-discovery.
Right, see you in a bit.
All right, so let's get into some of those strategies that Brianna Wiest outlines in The Mountain is you for, turning that self-sabotage into self-mastery.
Yeah, let's talk tactics.
Tactics, exactly. And one of the first things she talks about is setting healthy boundaries.
Okay, boundaries.
Mm.
I think a lot of people, when they hear boundaries, they think of like setting boundaries with other people, like learning to say no.
Right, like setting limits with others, yeah.
Yeah, but Wiest actually takes it a step further.
Oh, yeah, she talks about
setting boundaries with ourselves.
yes, with our own thoughts and behaviors.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's like recognizing those patterns, those self-sabotaging patterns, and then having the courage to interrupt them.
So it's almost like you're setting up these guidelines or these rules for yourself to help you stay on track.
Exactly. And it can be really practical things, like setting limits on screen time or, creating a consistent sleep schedule.
Or even something as simple as like saying no to that extra slice of cake.
Yes, exactly.
It's about making choices that align with your goals, even when it's not the easy thing to do.
Right. It's about being disciplined in a way that supports your growth.
Yeah, and it's not about deprivation. It's about making conscious choices that serve you.
Exactly.
Boundaries with ourselves, that's a really interesting concept.
It is. And another really important strategy that Wiest talks about is radical self-honesty.
Okay, radical self-honesty. So what does that mean?
It means being willing to face those uncomfortable truths about ourselves, the beliefs and the fears that might be driving our self-sabotage.
So it's not about beating ourselves up or dwelling in negativity.
No, not at all. It's about shining a light on those hidden corners of our psyche, those parts of ourselves that we might be afraid to look at.
So it's kind of like having the courage to explore those dark caves on your mountain, even if they make you a little uneasy.
Exactly, because you never know what you might find in there. You might discover hidden gems, or you might uncover some unsettling truths about the terrain.
But either way, you're gaining valuable knowledge that will help you navigate the rest of your climb.
Right, it's all part of the journey.
Yeah. Okay. So we've got boundaries, we've got radical self-honesty. What else does Wiest recommend?
Well, she also introduces this really interesting concept called the upper limit problem.
Upper limit problem. Okay, I haven't heard of that one. What is that?
So the upper limit problem is this idea that we often sabotage ourselves when we get close to achieving a level of success or happiness that feels unfamiliar or even threatening.
Oh, wow. So it's like we have this internal thermostat that's set to a certain level of comfort, and when we start to exceed that level, we get uncomfortable and we sabotage ourselves to bring ourselves back down.
Exactly. It's like we reach a certain altitude on our mountain and suddenly get hit with a wave of vertigo and we panic and scramble back down to familiar ground.
That makes so much sense because I think we've all experienced that in some way. Like we're
Right.
finally starting to make progress towards a goal, and then suddenly we find ourselves doing things to undermine our own success.
Right. And we suggest that this often stems from a deep-seated belief that we're not worthy of that level of success or happiness. It might be linked to childhood experiences or societal conditioning or even past traumas that have convinced us that we don't deserve good things.
So it's like we're carrying around this limiting belief that's saying, you're not good enough, you don't deserve to be happy.
Right. And that belief can be really powerful.
Yeah.
It can really hold us back.
So how do we overcome that upper limit problem? How do we break through that self-imposed ceiling and allow ourselves to actually achieve our full potential?
Well, Wiest offers several strategies, but one that really resonated with me is this idea of leaning into the discomfort.
Leaning into the discomfort. Okay, that sounds a little counterintuitive.
I know, right? But she argues that growth and transformation inevitably involve a certain degree of unease, and our instinct is often to retreat back to our comfort zones when things start to feel a little too intense.
So instead of resisting that discomfort, we need to embrace it as a sign that we're actually on the right track.
Exactly. It's like pushing through that initial burst of exhaustion when you first start climbing.
Yeah.
That on the other side of that discomfort lies incredible strength and resilience.
So it's about recognizing that discomfort is not a sign that we're doing something wrong. It's a sign that we're growing.
Exactly. It's a sign that we're pushing past our limits and expanding our capacity for growth.
I like that. And I think it's important to remember that it's not about becoming some sort of masochist who enjoys suffering.
No, not at all.
It's about recognizing that discomfort is often a catalyst for growth. It's
Mm.
in those moments of pushing past our limits, of confronting our fears, that we discover our true capabilities.
Exactly. And another really important strategy that Wiest talks about is reframing our narratives.
Reframing our narratives. Okay, so what does that mean?
It means challenging those negative self-beliefs that are holding us back and replacing them with more empowering stories.
So it's like revising your map of the mountain. Instead of focusing on all of the potential hazards and pitfalls,
Yeah.
you start highlighting the breathtaking views, the hidden trails, and the sense of accomplishment that awaits you at the summit.
Exactly. It's about shifting your focus from what you fear to what you desire. It's about visualizing yourself as the capable, resilient climber you truly are.
So it's not about denying the challenges.
No, not at all.
It's about choosing to focus on the positive
Yeah.
and believing in our ability to overcome those challenges.
Right. And one of the things I love about the mountain is that it acknowledges that this journey of self-mastery isn't a linear one.
Yeah, it's not always going to be an easy climb.
Exactly. There will be setbacks, there will be moments of doubt, and there will be times when you feel like you're sliding backward.
Right, and that's okay.
It is. It's all part of the process.
Yeah, it's not about striving for perfection. It's about embracing the messy, imperfect, and ultimately transformative process of growth.
Exactly. And it's like accepting that there will be moments on your climb when you need to rest,
Yeah, take a break.
regroup, and maybe even retrace your
Yeah,
steps.
figure out a new route.
Exactly. And the key is to view those setbacks not as failures,
Right.
but as valuable learning
Oh, I
opportunities.
love that.
Each stumble, each wrong turn can provide you with insights and wisdom that will help you navigate the path ahead.
Yeah, it's like you're gaining experience with
Yes,
every step you take.
exactly. And that experience is invaluable.
Absolutely.
So as you continue your journey towards self-mastery, remember that you're not alone.
Yeah, we're all in this together.
Everyone has their own personal mountain to climb, their own inner obstacles to overcome. And while the path may be challenging at times, it's also incredibly rewarding.
So true.
It's a journey of self-discovery, resilience, and ultimately of reaching new heights of potential that you never thought possible.
So keep climbing.
Keep climbing.
Okay, so let's keep unpacking some of these tools for dealing with self-sabotage from Brianna Wiest's book, The Mountain Is. Yeah.
Yeah, and one of the tools that I think is so important and often overlooked is self-compassion.
Self-compassion, yeah.
It's something that a lot of us, especially, high achievers, can really struggle with.
Oh, yeah. We're our own worst critics, right?
Exactly. We're so quick to point out our flaws and our mistakes.
Yeah, we're constantly analyzing every little step,
Yeah.
scrutinizing everything.
And we forget to acknowledge our strengths, and celebrate our wins.
Yeah, it's like we're so focused on the summit
Right.
that we forget to enjoy the climb.
Exactly. And self-compassion is all about, treating ourselves with the same kindness and understanding that we would offer to a friend.
Yeah, like imagine you're climbing with a buddy
Right.
and they stumble.
Yeah.
You wouldn't berate them. You would encourage them, right?
Exactly. You'd say,
Um,
come on, you got this, you can do it.
And that's what we need to do for ourselves. We
Exactly.
need to be our own cheerleaders.
Yes. And self-compassion isn't about making excuses for our mistakes or ignoring areas where we need to grow.
Right.
It's about acknowledging our imperfections without judgment and recognizing that, we're all a work in progress.
Yeah, it's about embracing the whole journey.
Exactly. The ups and the
The
downs.
stumbles and the triumphs,
Yes.
all of it.
Because it's all part of the process.
So how do we cultivate more self-compassion? What are some practical things that we can do?
Well, one thing that Wiest suggests is to start paying attention to your self-talk.
That little voice in our heads.
Yeah, exactly. And notice how you talk to yourself. Are you being kind and supportive, or are you being critical and judgmental?
Yeah, are we being a good climbing buddy to ourselves?
Exactly. And if you notice that you're being too hard on yourself, try to reframe those thoughts in a more compassionate way.
Yeah, talk to yourself like you would talk to a friend.
Exactly. Give yourself a break.
Yeah, and another thing that I think is really helpful is to practice gratitude.
Yeah.
Focusing on the things that we're grateful for.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, because gratitude really helps to shift our perspective.
Yeah, it helps us to appreciate what we have instead of dwelling on what we lack.
Exactly. And when we're feeling grateful, it's harder to be self-critical.
Yeah, it's like we're filling our cup up with positivity.
Right. And that makes it harder for those negative thoughts to take root.
So self-compassion, that's a big one.
Huge.
Another strategy that Wise talks about that I found really interesting is forgiveness.
Forgiveness. Yeah.
And not just forgiving others, but also forgiving ourselves.
Oh, that's so important.
Yeah, because sometimes we can hold on to these past mistakes or decisions that we regret. We beat ourselves up over them for years.
Right. It's like carrying around all that extra weight,
Exactly. It's weighing us down.
preventing us from moving forward.
And Wise points out that forgiveness isn't about condoning harmful actions. It's about freeing ourselves from the grip of the past.
Exactly. It's about letting go of that resentment and that anger that we're holding on to so that we can move on with our lives.
Yeah, because holding on to that anger, it doesn't serve us.
No, it doesn't. It just keeps us stuck.
And forgiveness, it's not always easy,
Right.
It can be a process,
It can be a very challenging process.
but it's so worth it.
It is, because it allows us to reclaim our power, to choose a different path, to choose a different future.
So self-compassion, forgiveness, these are all really powerful tools for dealing with self-sabotage.
They are. And one more strategy that I want to touch on is setting intentions.
Intentions, yeah.
Wiest talks about how having a clear vision of what we want to achieve is so essential for staying motivated and on track.
Yeah, it's like having a map.
Exactly. It gives
Yeah.
us a sense of direction.
Yeah, and it helps us to make choices that align with our goals.
Right, because when we know what we're working towards, it's easier to say no to the things that don't serve us.
And it's not just about setting goals. It's about aligning our actions with our values.
Right, it's about creating a life that feels meaningful and purposeful.
Yeah. And Willis emphasizes that intentions are not static.
Yeah,
They can evolve and change over time.
exactly. It's an ongoing process of checking in with ourselves and making sure that we're still on the right path.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the mountain
Mm-hmm.
is, the key takeaway is that self-mastery, it's a journey.
Where is
It's not a destination.
Yeah.
It's an ongoing process of growth and evolution.
Right, and it's about embracing all of it.
Yeah.
The challenges, the setbacks, the imperfections.
Yeah, it's about learning and growing from every experience.
Exactly, and remembering that we're not alone in this journey.
Yeah, everyone has their own mountain to climb.
That's right.
So if you're feeling stuck or if you're struggling with self-sabotage, highly recommend checking out Brianna Wiest's book, The Mountain Is You.
It's a great read.
It's full of insights and practical strategies that can help you get unstuck and start moving towards your goals.
And if you enjoyed this deep dive, be sure to follow or subscribe to Mighty Habits for more insightful discussions and actionable strategies to help you reach new heights.
That's right. We've got lots more deep dives coming your way, so stay tuned.
Thanks for listening, everybody.